Welcome to this special edition episode of the podcast to celebrate the launch of the book You've Got This. If you haven't, head out to your local shop or have a browse online. And if you have, please do consider leaving a review. It makes all the difference. Today on the podcast, I'm going to share the chat I had with Dr. Tracey Cole, who isn't just a superstar, she's also a great friend. Tracey is a leading coach and trainer of Neuro-Linguistic Programming, also known as NLP, and also timeline therapy and hypnotherapy. In fact, Tracey trained me to become an NLP master practitioner and master coach. Tracey was originally a biochemist and worked all over the world before her equestrian passion led her to NLP, more specifically the anxiety she felt when she was in the ring at shows competing. She thought she'd give NLP a go, and it didn't just change her riding, it actually changed her life. She retrained in NLP and she now trains trainers as well as coaches one-to-one to help people overcome the issues that they have. I hope you're going to love this episode. Tracey is such a legend. Enjoy. So Tracey, thank you so much for joining me today. Tracey, oh gosh, she's an NLP wizard. I'm going to let her introduce herself. But Tracey has been she's been awesome. I've done my NLP master practitioner, my NLP practitioner, my NLP coach with Tracey. She's nodding her head. I've got it all right. And we still work together now. And I'm delighted that you're going to be, producing this podcast with me for the book and also giving us a lot more in-depth information on 4 specific subjects I haven't given you any pre-warning about.
Brilliant. Okay.
I'll
do my best.
So can you tell us about your, what do you do? And, how did you get into it?
So I'm a trainer of NLP, which is Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So I'll tell you about that in a little bit. I'm also a trainer of timeline therapy, which is all about dealing with emotions and trauma. And I'm also a trainer of hypnotherapy, and I coach people as well, mainly equestrians, to help them with their mindset and also other mental issues, just to help them ride with enjoyment, and if they're more of a professional, then to ride with greater performance, so their mindset doesn't get in the way.
I mean, you also do business coaching and you coach people in all walks of life really as well, don't you?
Yeah, you don't have to be an equestrian. You don't have to be that mad. You can also be anybody who wants to get their emotions in better balance, or it's for professional development, personal development, those kind of things. So yeah, I help people whatever walk of life they come from.
Now, one of the things I am talking about in the book is about neuroplasticity, because I've talked about how we have these beliefs, how we believe things, how one thing can then lead to another. And sometimes we feel like we can't possibly change the way we are because we've always been that way. But thanks to neuroplasticity, we do have the ability to change, don't we?
Absolutely. And we often think that the way we are, whether we're a shy person, a nervous person, hugely confident, whatever we are, we think that's kind of set in stone. And we even look to our family, like the family tree. My mum was in such a mindset, and I am as well, or I was brought up in certain ways, and so that's influenced who I am. But like you say, everything is changeable in the way that you think, the way you behave, how you see yourself, whether you self-sabotage, your beliefs, your values, everything. If you want it to change, if it's not working for you, then everything can be changed.
So how does neuroplasticity work?
So we have brains that are a little bit like supercomputers, but like a computer, they're looking for patterns or coding. So a computer reads code, and our brain does as well, but a lot of the time we call it a pattern. So let's say you've got a certain set of beliefs about yourself, they are patterns. Let's say you've got certain values, what you find important in life, they are your patterns. Memories are also patterns. So we're just a bunch of loads and loads of patterns And like a computer, when you switch your computer on and you open up, I don't know, Microsoft Word, it doesn't judge what you're typing. It doesn't say, that's a load of rubbish, what you've just typed in there, or don't like that, or you've got loads of spelling mistakes. It just allows you to type it in, whatever you want to write. And that's a bit like our brain, that we just adhere to all these patterns. So until you change them, you'll stay the same. But what perhaps we don't realize is that every one of our patterns is completely changeable, and we just need a different route through our brain. So, you know, a different set of nerve cells being fired up will cause you to think a different way. And then you've got a new pattern in its place. So it's you know, it's not like a normal computer. It's much, much more flexible than that.
And I've said in the book, I've said something about the way we've always done things is like a pavement, or not even a pavement, like a motorway that goes between point A to point B. But when we start to decide, actually, we're not really a big fan of point B, we want to go for a different point. It's like walking up a kind of an overgrown forestry path to start with. And it's really hard work, because we really want to go down that motorway because it's much easier. But the more you walk that challenging path, the more it starts to become that kind of road. And I know that I've noticed it myself with reframing, you know, when something goes wrong, rather than going, oh my God, that was a disaster, and now very quickly go to, right, what can I learn? And that's not because I've always done that at all, but it's because I've been really focused on that other path that's now become a stronger link. And I think now the motorway is getting ever so slightly overgrown.
Yeah. And isn't that interesting? Sometimes when people do mindset work and you know, they've got this fresh new way of thinking, and then they lapse, it's exactly what you say, isn't it? It's because they've gone back to the motorway, because they decided they don't want to get a machete and go through the thicket. But if you do keep going through the thicket, like you say, it becomes a clear pathway, and then it becomes your pathway of choice. And then that's you done, isn't it? You've got that way of thinking. So it's really important that when you have got this fresh path, exactly what you said, that you keep going down it, and you keep, at first you're doing it kind of on purpose, aren't you? You know you're doing it. It's not automatic. You're instantly thinking, like you said, what can I learn from this? Maybe because you've got a post-it, you know, on your computer screen. But then it becomes really, really automatic, and it's just the way you are and the way you think.
Now, one of the things that a lot of people talk about is limiting beliefs. Can you talk to us a bit about beliefs and what limiting beliefs are?
So beliefs are, again, a set of patterns. A lot of them that make up your personality are formed when you're really, really young. So under the age of 7 in a lot of cases. So you'll pick up beliefs from anyone that surrounds you. So it could be people at school, people at home, people you interact with if you're in clubs and things like that. You'll pick beliefs up from friends and adults. And at that age, we don't discern the good ones from the bad ones. We just absorb them like sponges. So some of those will be limiting to us. So for instance, when I was about 4 years old, I can remember this scene. I remember walking down a pavement. I was going to my grandma's house. She was holding my hand, and I'm skipping along, singing at the top of my head, which must have been quite unpleasant for her, because she said, you know, you can't sing, don't you? Now, whether that was true or not, I think it was done with a bit of a joke. I probably wasn't Maria Callas or anything like that, but it stopped me singing. I never sung in public again, or wherever I thought someone might overhear me.
Wow.
I never, ever sung until I thought about it when I did more stuff on mindset. So that's how quickly it can change somebody. And obviously, if you take on a belief where you don't feel good enough, then it feels like any other belief. You don't say to yourself, oh, this is a limiting belief and it's different from the other ones. It's as strong and as real as any other belief. And it's only with a realization, perhaps a little bit of looking into yourself, thinking about how you act, how you think, looking for that different perspective, that you start to loosen up that belief and start to think, is this really true, or have I just made it up? Because a lot of beliefs are just patterns that we've either, as I say, taken on board from somebody else, or we've made them up like stories.
They can be irrelevant as well, can't they? So if, for example, when you were tiny, you were given some money for your birthday, you spent the money on something ridiculous, and someone said to you, "Oh, you're not good with money, are you?" Well, actually, that could be that you spent your £5 on sweets and you could have bought something better, according to somebody else. But that can then move into your adult life, that if you're thinking of starting a business, you want to grow your business, you go, "Well, I'm not good with money."
Yeah.
And it's important to challenge those beliefs, because they can be so detrimental if you always believe you are not good at writing, not good at reading, not good at this, not creative, because when you were small, a horrible person in your class said, "That's rubbish, you can't do it." There can be these little, when we analyze it, kind of ridiculous things that have happened, like a horrible child said something to you, but actually that then becomes part of you, and you make decisions based on that.
I know, it's incredible, isn't it? That something that at the time could have been so trivial, like you say, a classmate who has no artistic knowledge tells you that your drawing is rubbish, and suddenly you're not creative, you're not artistic, you just block that side of you off, and you desperately try not to do anything creative in life because you don't want that criticism. And then in adulthood, how is it that little comment lingers? But it does, and it's really strong, and you might not even know the root cause, or you've forgotten it, or you're not really sure about it, but you've taken on this belief that you're no good at something for no good reason, apart from the fact that you were so young that you couldn't make that judgment of their judgment, and it affects the way you are totally. It's incredible.
Oh, completely. And I mean, how do we challenge that? I would think a strong first step is to really analyze what you are saying to yourself and how you're limiting yourself. But how would you tackle it?
Yeah, exactly the same. It's having that awareness. It's thinking to yourself, what is stopping me doing something or being something? What is it? What thought process makes me think I'm no good at this? And then challenging it. Is it true? Is it really true? Or is it that I've built this up over time, and I could at least have a go? I could at least explore if I can do it. And so having the awareness is always the first thing, because that stops it being so automatic. Because you catch yourself when you're in a situation and you think, I'm doing it again. I'm thinking that thing again. Is it really valid here, or am I just making it up? So once you've got that awareness, then it's really going inside yourself and thinking, how has this impacted my life, and where has it come from? And sometimes if you get the where has it come from, you'll see that it's so ridiculous, where this off the cuff remark from somebody, teacher, parent, whoever, has caused you to believe something that really isn't very true, or not true at all. So some people like to journal. They like to pour it all out in words, and it doesn't have to be grammatical, it doesn't have to make sense, and you're just kind of doing this free flow of writing. Other people are more introspective in that they like to think about it very deeply, and they have quiet time or time in nature, and that's when it comes out a little bit more, the realization. So it depends on the person and how you like to work and what you like to do to get to the bottom of these things. And if you really can't get to the bottom of it on your own and you've tried, then obviously then you can go down the coaching route or something like that. And sometimes somebody else's perspective, even if they don't know you, can really pull out that limiting belief. They can hear it in the way that you speak even.
Definitely. And one of these things connected to limiting beliefs, but also as a standalone, is this fear of failure. How do we address this?
So the fear of failure is in some ways another limiting belief, because it's a fear that has come from somewhere that you've decided, you put a certain level, a certain threshold on what is success and what is failure. And maybe you've got a bit of a grey area in the middle even, but you've decided what failure is, and you've labelled it as something really bad and that you can't possibly try because you might fail. And there's no point doing it because you might fail. And you're not perfect yet. And so you might fail. And so it's picking apart, where has the fear of failure come from? Is it because you're a perfectionist and you just won't release things out into the world until they're perfect, which they'll never be? Or has it come from a limiting belief that I'm not good enough, or I don't deserve this, I don't deserve success? Or is it because you see failure as the end point, like the cutoff, that you can't see failure as a learning process?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you might only learn that is not the way to do it. You know,
Something very valuable, let's be honest.
You might not have like huge learnings and suddenly the gateways to success and millionaireship open, but you can see that the way that you were doing it for whatever reason didn't work. So all of them are valid, but all of them can be overcome. They're not set in stone at all. They can be overcome, and we can get rid of these fears because we can see the way that we're thinking has so many flaws in it.
And the last thing I'm going to ask you about is growth mindset. We know mindset's really important. We've covered quite a few different points actually with, addressing these limiting beliefs, fear of failure. How can we develop more of a growth mindset?
That's really challenging because everybody enjoys a comfort zone, and that's what we're geared to do. We're geared to feel safe. So the most primitive part of the brain, that's what it wants: safety, security. It doesn't want a growth mindset. It doesn't want an expansion at all. So we need to see that, just like when we learned to walk, that was a growth mindset, because you didn't need to walk necessarily, because somebody was always coming along with food for you. Someone was dressing you, but that is probably one of the most challenging things that we do in life, because you're going to get it wrong and you're going to tumble lots. And you're going to get it wrong. And then as you grow, you need to adapt because your weight and your center of gravity change. So we've got to go back to that, where we want to be dipping our toe a little bit more outside of the comfort zone. And I think for most people, it's almost like there's this layer around the comfort zone that's not quite in the growth mindset, but it's dipping your toe and thinking, oh, do you know what? I actually can do this. And it's doing it so that we soothe that part of the mind that goes into massive panic if you think about taking huge leaps, and you think about doing something which is overwhelming to the brain, because then you won't achieve it. You'll get so much fear that you'll just stay where you are, or you might even retreat.
And the thing is, although our brains are super clever, they do kind of obviously act in a slightly primitive way, that we view fear the same way as perhaps our ancestors did. Whereas, we're not going to be mauled by some creature if we push ourselves a bit. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the processes that our body and our brain go through are different.
It's exactly the same, isn't it? It's exactly the same feeling, but obviously, setting yourself up to be more visible in your business, or getting out there, or doing new products or new services, they would just be dipping your toe, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And that fear of failure, it's almost like turning it on its head, because you're thinking of all the negative what ifs. But what would happen if you thought the positive ones, like, what if it went well? What if, this was a stepping stone to something else as well?
Thank you very much. That's been brilliant.
Super duper.
I hope you've enjoyed that episode. Lots of food for thought there. Lots of really interesting things from Tracy. As always, she's such a star. If you have picked up the book, please do consider leaving a lovely review. It really means a lot. And to find out more about Tracy, go and have a look at her website, www.tracycolenlp.com, and find out all about what she offers and how she might be able to help you. Thanks so much.